Hang on, I'm having some problems. I can't hear you now.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, okay.
oh,
Uh,
there you go. Now
there,
I can hear you.
there we are. I don't know what. Yeah, something was not good there. I just read off your bio, and I don't think anyone heard it. Um,
Really?
yeah.
Hmm.
Did you hear me when I
Well,
don't?
I had turned it off so that I wouldn't have any, feedback.
Ah, okay. Well, I don't know. No, I think I did something on my end, and I don't know what the heck it was, and I apologize. Sorry, everybody. Um, anyways, I was reading off the bio to our guest, and I don't think any of you heard it. So, I guess a good place to start is first the pronouncing your name.
It's Amaterasu Solar.
Say that once more.
Amaterasu
Amaterasu
Solar.
Solar. Okay. I'll try. I'll really try to remember that. I'm really bad with names.
That's okay. That's okay. Like I said, most people struggle with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm a struggler with. It seems with names. I'm notorious for screwing them up on the show. But hey, I do welcome you, and I'd like maybe for us to start with background on yourself because again, I have a feeling people didn't hear the bio.
Okay. Well, my father was an aerospace engineer. He worked for Convair back in the starting the late 40s through the 50s and 60s, and I think he retired in the 70s. Um, and he would come home very excited about his work, and he was thrilled to have a daughter who was interested in what he was doing at work. And he would tell me about what he was doing. He was working in electrogravitics with T. Townsend Brown, which, if anybody out there knows who T. Townsend Brown is, he is basically the one who discovered the Biefeld Brown effect, which is what electrogravitics is founded on. There's some good information about how all of that developed in a book by Paul Laviolette called Secrets of Anti-Gravity Propulsion. And my dad was one of the people there at Convair that was working on that. And he'd come home and tell me about what they were achieving, how they were achieving gravity control. And one of the things that excited him the most was it seemed to be taking in more energy than it was using. So, you know, they were very excited about that. And, me being at that time fairly young, uh, he would tell me what the world would look like when I grew up because of the work he was doing. And he described flying cars, think Jetsons here, floating cities and houses, and the biggest thing of all was all the energy that we could use. Well, sometime in about late 1959, maybe early 60s, uh, he came home and told me that we couldn't talk about it anymore at all, period,
Wow.
because they want it secret for now. And so after that, he never talked about his work at all. That was it. We just did not talk about his work. But from that experience, I was very well aware that we did have the ability to draw energy from the ether, and the ability to build things that could float and whatever. Uh, while I was growing up, I was never really good with the higher math. I could do the addition, subtraction, and all of the lesser math, but I struggled with the higher math, so I wound up going into banking and then studying a great deal about economics. And I was always intrigued by the fact that uh, economics always started just assuming that money was a requirement. It was sort of like rain, there it is, and this is how it works. And I kept looking into that, and eventually I wound up reading a book by Jeremy Rifkin. I was reading a lot of other books too that from which I developed an idea about societal function and how the chaos theory and all of that. But when I got to the book by Jeremy Rifkin called Entropy, and some of the older people may recognize that title, it's basically what kick-started the whole uh, uh, recycling craze. It's like, oh my gosh, we're using too much energy. We've got to stop using energy because it creates entropy in society. And in that book, he made it very clear that what money does is account for our meaningful energy expended. So from there, I took that and, after examining what else money does in society, basically it accounts for our energy, which then allows us to exchange to survive. And it also allows us to get people to do things nobody wants to do, but we need done. The unfortunate thing about money is that it promotes the most psychopathic to the top, because they are the ones who will do anything, anything to get there and stay there.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, that's sort of the history of what brought me to the work, which is what I kind of wanted to discuss tonight.
And I'm actually looking forward to discussing this tonight because we know that there's so many better technologies we could be using, such as free energy. I've had guests on I had one guest on who had a vehicle that was running on water, literally running on water.
Yep.
He disappeared, so I don't know where he is anymore today. But
Well, I'll tell you what happened to him. Either he got bought out, or he got threatened, or he got killed, or he got ruined. One of those. Because that's what happens to people when they come up with these technologies that create better than what they control way at the top in the psychopathic pantheon.
yeah.
So that's probably what happened to him.
And it probably is what happened to him. And so, okay, so we have greedy, soulless. I mean, they have no feelings of emotion or sympathy for humankind. I mean, that's the only way you get where they are,
Yep,
is to have no
exactly.
soul. And so, there's always going to be some form of I guess money to exchange. There's going to always be some kind of
Not
exchange.
not necessarily, and that's why I'm here.
Really.
Yes.
But well, let me ask you this quick then. I mean, like, if you made coats and I needed a coat, and
Uh
I
huh.
made bikes and you needed a bike, we would exchange. That's still kind of like a
Yeah, but the difference would be, uh, if we had all of the work that we needed done that nobody wanted to do, done by robots with free energy, then we could distribute the things like, the farming and so on and so forth freely. You could order it up on the web. I want this. and it would be delivered. Now, uh, what we need to do is, of course, add the free energy, add robots to do the things we don't want to do. With the basic rule, if we've got enough people that want to do it, we don't need the robots. This neither forces anybody to do anything, nor forces them to not do anything. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They can, they're not, we're not making people do anything or not do anything. They can do what they love to do. Now, if you're making, let's see, I forget which side, were you making the bike or the coats?
I'm making the bikes and you're making the coats. I mean,
Okay.
I'll take either
if
one.
I'm making the coats because I love to make coats, and you show great appreciation for my coat, I can give it to you, but you could say, hey, I've got this bike. I love to make bikes. Would you like one? And I'd say, oh, yeah, I love your bikes. They're awesome. Okay. And then we can exchange, but we don't have to. It's really more of we do what we want to do. If I love making coats, it's not going to be to make money. It's because I love doing it. You see what I'm saying?
So then, yeah, basically it's kind of like Christmas. It's here's a gift for you. And, oh, by the way, I've got a gift for you, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, if I made 500 coats and I only had 3 people locally that wanted a coat, I'd put it on the web and somebody would say, hey, I want one of those coats. And I'd say, robot, deliver that to that person,
Yeah.
And because I don't need 500 coats, but I loved making them, and that's why they were made. As opposed to, I have to make them so I can get money, so that I can put food on the table. Because now, with all the basics and the materials and the tools available freely, we all can focus on that which we want. And rather than having a work ethic, which, I'm not talking about the worker's ethic of doing the best you can and all of that, showing up on time, doing the job well. I'm talking about the idea that if we plug our energy in somehow, that the accounting tokens we get back for having spent our time, energy, doing whatever it is we plugged our energy into, we can let's see, I sort of went off track there, but
well, basically you're talking about robots doing all the jobs that people do now, and basically
no.
Oh,
I'm
good.
talking about robots doing all the jobs nobody wants to do now. And actually not even all of those, because when you take away money, we don't need cashiers. And how many cashiers do you think love to do cashiering? That's what they want to do with their lives.
Well, I could speak from my past experience. When I was a kid, I didn't like it at all.
Exactly.
So I got a job.
I would say that, yeah, you might find one person in several million that really loves to do nothing but cashiering, but virtually nobody wants to do that. We don't need cashiers. We don't need salespeople. We don't need accountants. We don't need collections. Oh, and people who do collections, I know they just adore that work, huh?
Yeah, hey, let's go a little further, too. We don't need the IRS either.
We don't need the IRS. We don't need insurance. We don't need Wall Street. We don't need
the Federal
banking.
Reserve. We don't need none of that.
Exactly. In fact, if you take all those jobs out of the picture, at most, we only need 10% of the humans on this planet to keep things running. And there are a lot of people who love to solve problems. In fact, most of us will be motivated to solve a problem that is a problem to us. And once you take the money out, instead of saying, let's see, what's the cheapest way we can stopgap this? Or, how can I make the most money on this? It will be, what's the best way? And then we can discuss it and come up with the best solutions instead of crappy solutions, or saying, we have a problem and no money to fix it. Oh well, and just leave the problem sit to fester. We no longer have these limitations. So not only does taking money out of the framework get rid of the psychopaths in power, making them equally as powerful as everyone else. And that's where everyone is equal. Everyone should be equal in power. And right now, they obviously are not. We also can start solving our problems in absolutely the best way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Okay. And so, let me ask you this. I want to kind of cut back just a
Sure.
moment here. And so, with your father, what type of projects was he working on? What do you know for a fact that we're capable of, but is being kept from us?
Well, like I said, electrogravitics. They were doing experiments where they were getting discs to fly, and in the process of getting the discs to fly, they discovered that they could put several of them on a generator. Put these things onto a setup with a generator and output more energy than they were using to make the apparatus work.
And it's amazing you say that, because I had an old timer on the show a few times. John Searle, I think.
Oh yes, I'm acquainted with his work.
And I'll tell you, he's a fascinating individual, and a lot of people try to debunk him. But I hear more and more about how this is more than capable of being done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, one of the interesting things about both Searle's work, and which I think is related to electrogravitics, and electrogravitics itself, is that when these things operate, there is a cooling effect, not a heating, as things are drawing from the ether around us or around the items running. There's this marked cooling, which suggests that rather than being entropic, they are negentropic. In other words, they move towards a more ordered state as opposed to a more disordered state. So yeah, I'm going to tell you, we got this stuff. And a lot of people have said that the reason that it's hidden is because it threatens the oil companies. Well, yeah, it threatens them, but it threatens the entire structure of money. Because if you see, one thing that people don't understand is that 100% of the cost of everything is energy. And this is how you can show that. Let's start at the very beginning. You have the planet, and it has all this stuff that's sitting there waiting to be put to use. And you have somebody come along with a basket and use their energy to pick the berries they find and put them in the basket and take them back to the group where they might say, hey, I've got some berries. Can I have some of your, whatever you got there? And they start exchanging. But because human energy was very scarce relative to everything you might want, this is why we started doing the exchanging to survive. It's like, man, I put a lot of energy into that.
Yeah.
Okay. I did all the tilling and the weeding and the planting and the, harvesting. I'm not just going to give it away. My energy is very valuable. And so the products of our energy, the goods and services, represented our energy that we use to use the free stuff that's sitting here on this very abundant planet. And that's another thing. There's a lot of talk about how we're overpopulated and we've running out and this and that and the other thing. Well, if we took out, one of the things that money promotes is planned obsolescence. And if we got rid of money, we wouldn't be making things to break as soon as possible so we could get another sale going.
Oh yeah,
In
go.
fact, we would be very motivated, each and every one of us who is creating these things, to do the best we can and make the best product possible.
Well, we used to do that here in the United
Yes, we
States.
did.
Yeah, there was a time.
Yes, indeed. So we can go back to that where we are taking pride in the work we do, and especially because we are loving to do what we're doing. uh, you know, you wind up with a situation where it's more of a social currency. In other words, if you make a product and it's really yucky, you will earn some negative social currency because people will look at you, why are you making this so not so great? And they might think less of you. And of course, it will be in terms of respect and status and honor and thanks and appreciation and lauds and love and even self-satisfaction that we will do things.
But let me ask you this: do you think that humanity as a whole? Now I know that there's a whole lot of us that are really good on this planet, but then there's just like a whole bunch of, I don't know. We're kind of divided, I guess I could say. And I mean, do you think that humanity as a whole can ever? Because if you take away money, it seems like mankind will find something else to manipulate others with. And
Well, once you take away the money, because the only tool that they have in when you get down to the bottom, is money. Because our survival is keyed to having money, they can manipulate us. And they can pay toadies to do things. And they can pay strong arms to do things. And they can even pay armies to do things. Once you take the inability to pay anybody anything, then all psychopathic behavior has to be accomplished personally.
hey, I like
They
that
have to
idea.
personally go do it. And, we already handle the psychopaths that haven't made it out of the lower echelons pretty well, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you're creating a problem. Let's solve that by putting you in confinement so you can't create the problem anymore. Actually, most people, really, when you get down to it, when you remove money, you don't need the laws of commerce, which is all of admiralty law.
And if I may, I mean, even the prison system in this country is motivated by money now. They're privately owned.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So they're making whatever they can think of illegal so they can go out and arrest people to create slaves so that the prison industrial complex can profit.
Absolutely.
And rather than having that, I mean, when you take out the issues of commerce, you wind up with the need for basically the three laws of ethics, because you're no longer concerned with the commercial aspects of everything, like owning land. I mean, land ownership becomes very much less important, except for maybe the land you're living on. Because the reason land is so important is because it makes money for you.
Yeah.
Okay? Uh, the oh, I was going to say one thing about getting rid of the work ethic. Uh, I had forgotten about finishing that up.
Oh yeah.
You, if you take the work ethic out, plug your energy in to enrich the few, and you are free. Uh, Not really. It's a slave's ethic. And replace that with the betterment ethic. Do what you love to do and keep an eye out for ways to make things better. And if that's how we're all focused, things will get much better.
Yeah.
Right now, there's no focus on that. The focus is on how can we make more money,
Well,
irrespective of whether it's better for the world or not.
it's either how can I make more money or how can I get more handed to me for free.
Well,
That's the society that we have right now, and it's well, what I
I,
mean
I
is,
will, I will, I will say this that uh, right now, especially, there's a lot of us that are looking for handouts for free because otherwise we would be on the street dying of starvation.
yeah, but then I don't mind people who need help, but then there's those who won't lift a finger to help themselves, and they
There,
feel like
those
everything's owed to them.
actually are a relatively small percentage. And when you get down to the abundance paradigm, where you don't have any money, it doesn't matter if somebody wants to be a couch potato or not. Their energy isn't required to be input. They can sit there and play on the Xbox 24/7 if that's what floats their boat. Most people, however, want to do things. They want to create. We are a creative species. And so once you see, a lot of people today have been very badly mangled by this yoke called money. It has twisted them because it doesn't fit the human species very well. And that's another thing that I've brought forth is, instead of, people talk about democracy, or they talk about various other forms of government, and monarchy. Most people don't want to go for that. uh, I have come up with what I call a solutocracy, which, rather than everybody voting on what everybody's going to do, we only solve problems as they arise and base them on the three laws of ethics, which the three laws of ethics are: do not willfully hurt or kill another human being without fully informed consent. Do not willfully take or damage another's property without fully informed consent. And do not defraud another, which can only happen without fully informed consent. those are the three laws that are needed in abundance. We're not going to say we vote that you can't smoke marijuana, so you can't, because smoking marijuana is not unethical.
No, and
It's not applicable under those three laws. But if you're creating a problem, whatever it is, we can take a look at that, and that would be anybody who cares. you know and with the web, say somebody murdered somebody, you'd probably get a great deal of the planet looking in on it, and then all evidence could be brought forth. There wouldn't be any of this, you can't, that's inadmissible. I've seen places where, evidence has been made inadmissible for very unethical motives, particularly in the cannabis realm.
right, but
So,
I still think that there's always going to be those, and there might be a small minority, but there's always going to be those people who are going to want things to go back to their where they could be greedy and in power, and by wanting that, they're always going to try to find ways to manipulate, somehow fool people, or so. There's always going to be that evil realm. I guess I
well,
just don't.
yeah, except that here's the problem. Okay, it's pretty clear that if you mess with enough people, they're going to get a clue. And you're going to have a heck of a lot of charisma and persuasion to get people to do things for you. Do things unethically.
Well, while money may be gone, there's still, for a lot of the young guys out there, how about sex appeal? I mean, you might get
Well,
somebody who's smart and says, well, I'm going to use this beautiful
relationships,
woman. Huh?
interpersonal relationships
Yeah.
cannot be solved for. That's part of the human condition. Yes, there will be some of that. But if somebody is forced into that, eventually it will come to light and people will say there's a problem here, and they will confine that person because that's unethical. Forcing people to do anything is unethical.
I would agree with that. No disagreement here.
So, you know, I'm saying it will self correct because it's not like it's not like you have leaders per se. You will have leaders, but they will be the leaders that emerge for any given problem. For example, oh my gosh, the dam up there is cracking. Somebody needs to take a look at it. And you go to the web and you post on a central site saying this dam is broken, and it'll be in the local section, and everybody will, social responsibility will be spending like 15 minutes a day checking over what problems have been reported, seeing if you have a solution. If you have a solution, bringing it up. If you don't have a solution, but you see it as a problem, you vote it up. And eventually, if it's a big enough problem and you can't solve it locally, it will go to the next level because more and more people say, yeah, that's a problem. I don't have a solution, but that's a problem. And it will go to a wider area, a regional area.
Right.
And more people will be looking at these problems and offering any solutions they have. And let's say somebody in the next region over knows all about dams and all of that stuff, and he steps in and he says, hey, here's how we can handle that. Let's do this and shore up that and change this and whatever else he needs, he or she offers. Uh, and maybe several people can come in on the project and say, yeah, and discuss maybe this would be a better way and solve the problem in that fashion rather than having, voting somebody into an office that maybe has no clue about dams breaking, but he's got to solve the problem of a dam breaking. And then he says, all right, cronies, which one of you wants to make the most money here?
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
I guess I love the sound of it. I love the whole idea. I think it's fantastic. It's just I guess you got a little more faith in the human race than I do, and
Well, I do. I have a lot of faith in the human race because I see so many so many people who really want to make things better and they have no idea how. They feel powerless. So many have just totally given up.
that's
So
true.
many have taken on the attitude, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So many have been MK Ultra.
Yeah.
That's something that will go by the wayside for sure.
Well, people are being conditioned every day with
It,
the TV, the mainstream
yeah.
media, not even just the mainstream media, but I mean TV in general, and
Yep.
yeah, people are being brainwashed that hey, it's cool to have a cell phone to your head all day. It's cool to just have friends on your iPad and Facebook. There's no need to go and most people they get in a social setting. These young
Mm,
people nowadays, and I mean they don't know what to do. They're looking for their phones.
precisely. And here's one thing to think about. Um, right now, they are using very destructive frequencies in their cell phone equipment.
Yeah, they are.
If you look into Tom Bearden, I don't know if you're acquainted with his work, but I read a book called Gravitobiology by Bearden, and he makes it very clear that we could be having the same technology with frequencies that enhance our health, enhance our world. They know it. They know what they're doing in pumping out all this very disruptive uh, energy into our universe,
Oh,
and it
absolutely, they know.
and it's very deliberately done.
Yeah, it is. I had a good friend and guest who was on and played different frequencies on the air, and when you get the phone's been off the hook too long and you get that
Yep,
no,
yep,
I mean that is designed to annoy the hell out of you, and that's exactly what it does. And so
yep,
yeah, they control people so easily, and people have no idea. I mean, in Seattle now they've got Wi-Fi. I think in downtown or in the entire city it might be now, but they have Wi-Fi on all the poles, the street poles, the utility
yep,
poles. So with that, I mean, my God, they just zap you. What? Oh, a little road rage. Let's zap them. You know,
yep.
people think it's
And
a conspiracy
you know,
theory, though.
I mean, I keep thinking about if we manage to get electrogravitics out of the black projects, or somebody manages to replicate it outside thereof, and I can tell you there are lots of people working on it. Um, we will probably have very little traffic problems because our cars can then go flying about in the sky, and I'm sure that we can engineer them so that they will be aware of when other vehicles are approaching and avoid collisions and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
And here's another small issue I find with this one again this wonderful idea. This is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for it. But how do you get those in power to give it up without taking the
Well,
whole thing with them?
here's what happens. If you add free energy, that's going to take the cost of the external energy out of the system. And things will get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, especially first initially in the areas that there's large competition. There's a lot of competition, that's going to happen really fast. But then in the other sectors where there's not so much competition, there's going to be a lot of public pressure. And they're going, especially if we all know what the plan is. If we're out to get rid of money, we will say, hey, get with the program, you know, and
Yeah.
then somebody will come up with something cheaper to compete with them, or I'm not going to say it will just bam happen. It will be a process, and if we know what the goal is and enough of us are working towards it, which you know my goal is to get the ideas to the tipping point. Once they reach the tipping point, it will seem like everybody is talking about it, and once that happens, my work here is done. I'm going to leave it to the human race to work on it further, but I'm giving the outline of the plan. And if that happens, we will do it.
Well, and that's the challenge, is getting everybody on the same page, and that's kind of what we try to do here on this network, is try to get people thinking and opening their minds and get out of the matrix that they've been put in. This box.
Exactly.
Yeah, this box has been drawn around these people, and they think that, well, this is the only way because this is what
Yep.
they, yeah. So, I think anything is possible if you could think of it. If it could become a thought, then it could become a reality. That's how I feel.
Yep. Absolutely.
Mm.
So, my goal is to get enough people thinking about it that it goes over that tipping point. And you know, I I guess one of the things I have going for me is that there's nothing in it for me that isn't in it for everybody. Not like money where if I can get them to buy it, I can get rich.
Yeah.
It's like if I can get people to work on this, help spread this information, uh, then they'll be doing it for themselves as much as for me.
Yeah. We got to.
Because virtually everybody benefits. We will have no more poverty, we will have no more oppression, we will have no more wage or debt slavery, we will have no more profiteering, and that's the biggie, the profiteering. I mean, war is entirely for profit. It's fomented. They use the false flags, the psyops, the propaganda, the fake news. I mean, think of Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
They use outright lies, false rumors, and agent provocateur. They will whip people up into a feeling that what what they're fighting for is has to be fought for and is right on both sides, and then they sit back and sell the weapons to both sides.
Yeah.
That's the only reason that we are at war anywhere in the world, is because of that.
Well, you know that I think it's. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to kind of paraphrase here a little bit and try to
Mm-hmm.
remember. But I think it's Pakistan. There was a big school shooting that just recently happened, or something. I think
Yeah.
it's Pakistan, and it's come out now that one of the kids who was supposed to have been killed in Sandy Hook, well, his
No,
picture
Noel
has,
Posner.
yeah, his pictures emerged now with the Pakistan
Yeah,
school
I, I,
shooting.
I'm thinking that's another Sandy Hook.
Oh, it has to
You
be.
know?
It has to be because the same kids involved in both. I mean, Come
Yes,
on.
he got killed twice.
Yeah, he got killed twice. I mean, and this, I used to get mad when people said this. It's like, no, kids really died. I mean, I really believe that, and I've seen enough evidence to now
Yes.
I'm wondering why people aren't asking more questions now.
I agree. I sit there thinking, either people are refusing to look at the evidence or they just cannot allow themselves to accept what the implications are. That what we see on the news bears little to no resemblance
Oh no.
of reality, which is kind of scary and it's manipulative. And
Well, and these puppets who are giving us the news on these TV networks, they're all reading. If the teleprompter goes out, they're stuttering. They don't know what to say. Back to you, John. You know,
yep.
I mean, so they don't investigate anything. They're not journalists anymore. They're like what a robot could do. Just put a robot up there and have it read. You know, it's the same thing. It's a view reader. What do they call those things? The kids use. But that's basically what they are. I mean,
Yeah.
they're reading what's given to them. They're not looking into anything. And I look into stuff, and I'll tell you, I don't know. I'm glad I haven't lost my mind and wound up in a nut house with all the things that I've seen and found out that just were not true. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what a virtual reality we have been brought
Well,
up in.
I'm going to tell you at this point, every single news story that I see on mainstream media and even on a lot of the alternative sites, my first thought is, okay, that's fake. Show me proof it's real, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, I can make a case for why somebody would fake it. Sandy Hook, take our guns away. Okay.
Well, yeah, and there's something else too. If you look into it, and I have somebody had brought this to my attention, I think a couple of years ago now, but I think it was Christmas Eve 2012 or 2011, yeah, something like that. All the houses, all the houses in Sandy Hook were their mortgages were cleared, all
Yep.
all paid for. Um,
Yep.
and again, I don't have the specifics in front of me, but I could easily find them if I have to. And so could
Oh
you,
no,
people.
I know they're there. I've seen them.
Yeah. So, I mean, and there you go again. It's like, are you kidding me? It's just amazing to me. And
Yep. You know, given these facts, okay, this happened a few years back, 5, 10 years, I don't remember exactly, but there was a group that was trying to pass a law that said that all news had to be as true as could be established. Okay, it had to be true stuff. And all the networks fought against that effort. All of them. And they won. So there's no law saying that what they tell us has to be the truth.
that's right.
And then you add on top of that fairly recently, I think it's been in the last 2 to 5 years, kind of lose track of time at my age.
Oh, me too.
The 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 government had a law that was passed shortly after World War II that said it could not use propaganda. And that was overturned. So now we have the media that doesn't have to tell us the truth and the government that doesn't have to tell us the truth.
Well, yeah, they've got a law saying that murder's illegal too, unless they do it. Then it's another whole other ball game. So yeah.
Yes, then they call it something else, and then it's not murder, and it's okay.
Well, they call you a terrorist, and they say they were defending the country. And
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank God for the Patriot Act, you know.
Oh yeah, that was a marvelous. It just amazes me that people nobody questioned the fact that this, how many pages was it? At least 300. Uh, that all, you go through it and it's all referencing other legislation, changes to other legislation. That all of that was compiled in, like, what was it, 2, 3 weeks after 9/11? Boom, there it was, ready to go.
Oh yeah.
And nobody questioned that.
No,
Well, I,
people aren't
you know,
questioning a lot of this stuff, and this is what makes me. It's like I don't know. It's like a magic spell has been put over a large part of the population, and there's some of us like you and I who can see, and then there's
yep.
others who just doesn't. If you show it to them, they still can't see it.
I know I have a sister that, I mean, she won't even look. No, you're wrong. I'm not looking.
Oh yeah, they plug their ears and
It's
they
like,
run away
okay,
and they go, I don't want to
well,
hear it. I don't want
what
to
do you?
hear it. I don't want to hear it. Yeah, it's like yeah, it's this is why we're where we are. It's just it's unbelievable. We do need to take a break here though, so let's do that.
Okay,
All right,
sounds good.
we'll be on break for just a few minutes and we'll come back, folks. This is Late Night in the Midlands. You're more than welcome to call in if you've got a question, a comment, some brain, your everything you feel and upload it into this virtual reality, into this avatar, and you'll live forever and ever in this virtual city. And sometimes I wonder, is that already happening? I mean, because people are just, they're programmed.
It does seem that way. Maybe. I mean, there are people that do claim that this is a hologram, and uh, you know,
I hope not. I really hope not, because then that would mean that we've been chasing our own tail for, I don't know, what, a couple thousand years or so. And that would suck.
probably longer than that.
Well, yeah, a lot longer than that. I seen that there was some biblical talk going on in the chat room, and I'll say this, long before the civilization of Jesus, long before even Moses. I mean, there's been multiple civilizations on this planet, and it has been wiped out many times. I believe that the
Yep.
technology that we have right now has always existed, and we've just reinvented it. And so, with that being said, I mean, people say, "Oh, well, how is the pyramids built? How was these things done?" We're assuming that these guys were playing with stone tools because that's what we're being told in our virtual reality here.
Right.
But how do we know that the truth of the matter is that they had far advanced technologies than we could even think of right now? So, you know,
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about the vibrational technologies that are coming out now, where they are suspending things in midair using sound vibrations. And it's like, that's awesome. Do you think that's how they built the pyramids?
yeah,
Nah, couldn't be.
exactly, and so
I'm sure that sound technology, the absolutely was used. I can't imagine how else they did it. It certainly wasn't in 20 years with rocks and copper chisels.
no, it certainly wasn't, and they weren't rolling these big giant stones on logs either. It's just
No.
that's a
Well,
bunch of nonsense.
they really didn't have any wood to be rolling things on.
Yeah, and it had to be, some people will say, well, if they weren't able to do it, then it had to be the extraterrestrials. Well, maybe ET is probably coming somewhere down the line, right? But
Oh, I'm certain that ET has been involved for a very long time. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Morningsky's work,
oh,
and
very much, yes.
I don't know how true his stuff is, but boy, it sure resonates with a lot of the Sumerian stuff that's coming out. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that the human race is a genetically manipulated ET hybrid sort of thing,
And I
based
could
on
give
his.
people a little evidence that this is possible because the UK right now, I believe it's the UK, is getting ready to. They're going to launch a program where they're going to grow vegetables on Mars. They're going to grow lettuce and different vegetables on Mars, and they hope to eventually that they'll be able to withstand themselves and populate the planet with this new life, right? So who's to
Mm-hmm.
say that that's not what happened here? I mean, people say, "Oh no, that's not." How could you say that when we're about to do this to another planet?
Yeah, yeah. I do not doubt, considering all of the historical stories from around the world of, well, the gods came from the sky. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It can,
You
and,
know,
and
I don't think they just made that up one day all around the planet.
no, and that's not to say that I don't believe in a creator. See, to me, God is the universe. It's so big you'll never see it all, and it creates and it destroys. But when it comes to the life and who put it here, personally for me, I don't care if I find out giant beetles put us here. I just want to know how we got here and what it's all
Right.
about. You know,
Absolutely.
other people they can't. I mean, if they think for 1 minute that it's something other than what they've read in a book, then oh my Lord, have mercy.
Heresy.
Yeah, it's like prepare yourself for
Yep.
anything because anything's possible.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Now, I do feel that, I mean, I've read scriptures from all around the planet, and I have found that, at least from what I can tell, it's like a whole lot of dreck with a lot diamonds scattered throughout. You know what I mean?
well, yeah. To me,
That's my personal take.
it's like man's story. It doesn't seem like because I don't know. I see a lot of ritual, a lot of things that I wouldn't see a god doing. But then how would I know? I've never met him. So, but
Well,
I don't know. I brings up questions for me. I mean, we're told incest is wrong, but there's stories of incest. Then all loving God, and we're told, well, he killed people because they were homosexual, and kill your firstborn and paint the blood on your doorways, and just things
I
like that. Kind of, I don't know, are weird to me.
I have a friend that maybe I'll see if I can get her on here. She has done just a tremendous amount of research into, uh, you know, what the texts actually say, and work them through. And she has got some very interesting ideas about uh, the God in the Bible that talked about loving and, going forth and multiplying and all of that.
They're
The,
not
the
teaching us about
kind
that one.
God in the Old Testament, that was in key. And the wrathful, destructive God was Enlil. And they kind of got mushed together when the Bible was put together. That is her assessment. And I think she could talk your ear off on that stuff.
Oh, I love to hear about it because some people mistaken me for some anti-God or Bible and anti this and I'm just somebody who's seeking answers and
Right.
I need proof. I'm not going to take what somebody believes and that the whole you've got to have faith.
Yeah,
Yeah, you do
I'm
have
with
to
you on
have
that.
yeah, you do have to have faith, but if you're gonna teach it to others, you can't. For me, you got to have some proof. And is there
Yep.
proof that there's a God? Absolutely, there's proof. But I don't believe that that's the God we're being taught about. I think the God we're being taught about came in a spaceship. That's just the way I see it.
Yes. I'm with you. I will say this. I had a very, I don't know how to describe the experience, but all of a sudden it was like I was every time, every dimension, and yet timeless and dimensionless at the same time. And there's so much that there's no way that I could express what I experienced in this whole thing. But when I came I came back, I guess, is the only way to describe, you know, becoming back into my flesh and everything. The thing that I took from that was that consciousness is God. Everything is consciousness at some level of awareness. That we are God, co creating the now.
I love the way you think because that's how I always felt like God would be within us. We don't need a middleman for God. That if God, when you think about God, you would think, here's the Almighty who created it all, right? So why wouldn't He put that connection within us so that we
Yep,
wouldn't have to depend on someone else who could obviously misguide us? So,
exactly.
yeah.
So that's my experience. And unlike a lot of people who I guess feel insecure because they feel other people have to believe the way they believe, I really don't care if anybody believes what I believe. That sits with me just fine. Y'all can believe whatever you want. Just all I care about in others is how they behave. Is it ethical behavior? Then I'm good with it. If it's unethical, then I have problems.
Right.
That's the way I go about it.
Right, and
I
that's
have
how I do. I judge people based on their character, who they are, how they carry themselves. If you're smacking your child around down the sidewalk, well, you're not a good person to me.
yes.
If so yeah, I judge people on how they treat others, and I don't know, not so much. I could care less if I get along with. I've talked to homeless people and I've gotten along with them better than I have any rich person ever. I mean, it's like they're so much more down to earth. They're so much more connected. And these people get rich and they get wealthy, and it takes them away from who they were supposed to be. And
Yep.
they become somebody totally different, somebody who I don't want to associate with.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Well, just so you know, and one of the reasons that, my book has a $10 price tag on it is because right now I'm living on one meal a day because that's all I can afford on food stamps because I will not buy the GMO. I will not buy the Roundup sprayed stuff. I will not buy, all the unhealthy stuff. If it's got high fructose corn syrup, won't touch it. So I'm down to one meal a day on my food stamps, and I would be homeless right now, except for um, a friend who, well, he's right now struggling to pay my rent and deal with I don't know if you know about the illegal MERS mortgage fraud.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it.
Okay, he's being nailed under that. So, I'm like on the edge of homelessness right now. And I figure if somebody buys, it's a PDF, $10, it's not all that much, and it's really a donation because right now I do need a lot of help. I was laid off 8 years ago. I have applied to getting upwards of 100,000 jobs over the web. Granted, I didn't spend a lot of time on all of those trying to get them. They were just jobs. Well, yeah, I could do that. I don't want to, but I could do that. I'll apply. But then there have been jobs when it's like, oh, I really want to do that. And then I'll take the time and, structure a specific cover letter and the whole 9 yards. But in these 9 years since I was laid off, uh, no jobs. None. I'm an old lady. I'm arthritic, so it's not like I can stand at the counter and say, "Do you want fries with that all day?"
Yeah.
I'm very limited in what I can take, and I've been refused disability too many times.
Oh, well, you've got to leave the country, let go of your citizenship, and come back illegally, and then you'll get it.
I guess, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I am sort of at my rope's end on that score, and I just hate being a burden to my friend. I mean, it is what tears me up every day.
And I know the feeling. I've been there before. So
And I have been homeless. I spent a number of months out on the road with my thumb out riding with truckers. That was an experience. Wound up in Davenport, Iowa, and spent some time at the homeless shelter there. So
yeah,
yeah, and then a friend said, "You can come stay with me," and I went, "Awesome!" And then from there, my other friend said, thought thought he had a job for me here, and so I came down. And while I was on the train coming down, the job fell through. So,
oh,
so here I've been for 3 years, being a burden to him, trying to find work. But when you're up against 50 to 300 people, all for the same job, and most of them are 20 and 30 something, they're not going to go for the 60-year-old arthritic lady. They're just not.
yeah. Oh, I,
It just, what do you do? So,
and jobs are really tough to come by in this country right now. Anyways, I know there's people out there
exactly.
that don't realize that because they have a job, but there's a lot of people who don't, and they're not accounting those who ran out of the unemployment and
Yeah,
they gave
I,
up.
I'm not considered unemployed when they calculate the unemployment rate,
No,
because I ran out of unemployment 8.5 years ago.
yeah. Oh
And
well,
I've been looking, you know, just so intensely ever since. And, also trying to spend time spreading awareness of my work that I think is worth a heck of a lot, that more than anything that I could plug my energy into to get my accounting tokens so that I can put food on the table.
well, some
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's more important that I go be an accountant than try to save the world from the psychopaths that are presently in control. I
yeah.
don't know,
Well,
but
sometimes the work that you do can reflect on not getting these jobs too. Because I've had Homeland Security interfere and stop me from getting a job before. I mean, that's no lie. So
oh,
yeah,
in fact, I'm pretty sure I'm blacklisted somewhere, because I've had employers that they took a look at I'm a graphic designer. They've taken a look at the work that I've done and gone, called me. Oh, we're really excited about it. We're really excited about it. And I've had them right in the middle of things where it looked like it was really going well, suddenly tell me, "Oh, we changed the requirements of the job and you don't qualify anymore. Thank you very much. Goodbye." What? Or
jeez.
let's see, what was another one that I get? Uh, oh, we decided that we're not going to fill this position at this time. But then the next day I'll find it newly posted again on the site I found it in the first place.
Now I've
Or,
had that happen too, where I was, applied for a job, and they, oh well, we filled that, and then you look, and 2 months later, it's still in there. It's
yep.
still, yeah,
And I've had a lot of just never, just, you know, I send emails, try to make phone calls, and just zero response after all this excitement. Wait a minute, what? Okay, something's up. So yeah, I have that to contend with too. It's a joy.
yeah. It sounds
So
like it. It does. It sounds like it. So now, where can people get the books, and maybe tell them a little bit about your website, which I do have linked up on our homepage at latenightinthe
Right. Well, I have the link. Let me bring it up here because I don't have it immediately in front of me. Ouch. I'm sorry. I have a cat who's insistent on attention. And okay, let's see. It's in this file. Okay, it's www uh, dot the living moon TheLivingMoon.com / the number 4, the number 5, and the word abundance. So that's www.thelivingmoon.com / 45 abundance. And that is my site. It's set up so you can access it both on a mobile device as well as a regular, PC type screen. You get your choice, and it gives you some information. There's an excerpt, which is my piece called The Foundations of Economics, wherein I go through explaining why adding free energy and robots to do the work nobody wants to do make it moot to have money. I mean, when you add the free energy, it becomes kind of like accounting for grains of sand. It's kind of pointless because now you're accounting for something you've got a whole lot of.
Yeah, well, Obama would say, well, if we just give amnesty, then we'll have people to come in and do all the jobs nobody wants to do. That's the way
Well,
they
yeah,
think.
but I'm out to eliminate using humans as robots.
I'm for that.
I think that's unethical. You know, if you want to survive, you have to go do this nasty work.
Well, every time you go and buy something in Walmart, you're really supporting slavery because,
Oh,
yeah,
that's why, unless there is absolutely no other choice and I absolutely have to have something, and if I have the money, then I will, with anguish, go to Walmart.
yeah.
But I haven't been to Walmart in years.
Well, what I mean, I guess, is in China they've got a lot of slave labor, a lot of sweat camps. That I mean, they have found notes in the pockets of clothes already in these stores.
Yep.
Help me, I'm in line, whatever. And so that's why I say people say, "Oh, I'm against slavery," but where do you go and buy all your products? Oh, from Walmart, the corporation that's putting all the mom and pops out of business.
Yep.
Yeah, and even some of the other corporations it's putting out of business. It's gotten too big. Walmart.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I've talked with people who try to make a case for a money system. Well, if we change this and we change that, and it's like, no matter what you do with a money system, no matter what you do, the psychopaths will find a way around it because it's leverage. Take their leverage away entirely, and then all they have left is how well they can personally manipulate people that they meet and encounter personally. It's all they can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got. I don't even have to talk about the elite psychopaths. I mean, there's psychopaths on a smaller level too, and it comes down to money. I believe that a lot of them get paid to cyberstock, and
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
try to change your way of thinking and change your way of doing things, and so they get paid big bucks to go do these things.
You know how I handle, I've had, I'm on Twitter, right? And I've had periodically somebody try to, pick a fight with me, you know,
Mhm.
and they'll make some kind of rude remark. And you know what I do when I realize that, they're not actually interested in anything I have to say, but are just trying to be a rectal orifice. I type to them, "Yep, you're right. Have a nice life." And you know what? They can't argue with you, because how do you argue with somebody that's agreeing with you? And it's like, I don't really care whether they believe that or not. It's like they can't argue. And every single time it works. Yep, you're right. Have a nice life.
Yeah.
And then I don't hear from them again.
Well, and I would do some of them. I just block the minor ones, but you got to be careful sometimes, because if you agree with them, they'll take screenshots of that, and they'll plaster it and say, "See, this is what he said." Um,
Well, I suppose, except that at this point, I've made it very clear that when I say that, I'm just dismissing you. That it has nothing to do with me actually believing that. And, you know, and here's an interesting fact. I've been on Twitter since 2012. I have yet to block a single person. Never blocked them. Never blocked a single one. And I had one guy threatening to smother me. Didn't
yeah.
block him either. I did report him to Twitter, though.
Yeah, see, I do. I will block them. It's because I just don't have time to deal with these idiots, these morons out there who will spend their entire day eating Doritos and sucking down Pepsis and smoking cigarettes, and just their only sole purpose is to grow a beard and cyberstalk you. And
Yeah.
I just don't. I used to have fun with that stuff with these idiots, but not no more now.
Yeah.
I
Well,
block them.
you do weigh your options, and what
Yeah.
your priorities are from time to time, and make adjustments. But so far, nobody's really bothered me much. Like I
Well,
said, I've had a few.
well, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Hey, we've got one more break coming up here, and then I want to come back and we'll finish up. And
Okay, sounds wonderful.
all right, great. So hang on with me for a moment, folks. This is Late Night in the Midlands. If you have not checked out the guest website, it is linked up on the homepage of latenightinthe So go check it out. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. We'll take your calls of it, and we are back. All right, so we're back. I'm just gonna say Miss Solar. Then I know I can't get it wrong.
Actually, my friends call me Amy because it's a lot easier.
Really? Okay. Well, I didn't want to be disrespectful. It's just
Oh, not a problem. Not
I,
a problem.
I,
I would never presume disrespect.
well, I appreciate that. All right then, Amy. Um, so, what would you like to speak about that we might not have touched on? What else would you like to get out there? What other areas would you like to um, hit before we're done here tonight? We got about another 20 minutes. So,
Well, that's a good question. Let me think about it. I've covered the free energy. I've covered the solutocracy, uh, as opposed to the democracy. I've covered uh, the the interrelationship of energy to money. And in fact, one thing I wanted to say is that when you look at it, money equals power equals energy, much in the same way that ice equals water equals steam. There are three forms of the same thing. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, I I I could bring up my video. Uh, I'm not really sure how to go about giving the link. I suppose I could just talk it.
Yeah, you could either do that.
It's on YouTube. The number.
If you're in the chat room, you could also put it in the chat room too.
Oh, okay. I'll drop it. I'll drop it into the chat
All
room.
right, and I'll direct everybody who's listening. If you want this link, you'll go over to latenightinthe and in our drop down menu, you'll see chat and listen. Click that tab, come into the chat room, and that link is there for you.
There we go. It's in there. I did opt for the anonymous route because I figured I'd rather have people focusing on the ideas than on me. So I'm wearing that silly Jesuit mask. But I figure, one thing that people will notice about me is that I use a lot of what a lot of people seem to think are Illuminati symbols. But what I'm doing is taking those symbols back because the eye is the eye of consciousness. And they took that symbol and twisted it. And I use in one of my logos, I use the female anonymous person. But I figure if anonymous is leaderless, then I can use it too. So that's why I went that route.
Yeah, I thought I had the anonymous. I thought I had him coming on the show. When I first looked at it, I says, "Oh," I says, "Those are the people who make videos."
Well, I'm just one individual. I did have help from Cobalt Kitsune. That's what he goes by on Twitter. He visited me, and he had a camera and was skilled in editing and all of that. And together we put that together. I wrote it, and he did all the hard work.
Well, nothing wrong with that, unless he's
So
complaining.
yeah, so that's how my video came about. Sadly, he had to move on because he was just visiting for a short period of time. So now I don't have a cameraman, so I'm not making any more vids.
Well,
But
it's if you get I guess I see what you're saying, but I mean there's ways around that. I guess you could get a webcam and it wouldn't be as great, I guess, but
well, when you're sitting there looking at 38 cents that you've had in your pocket for 6 months now,
yeah.
doesn't look promising. I have no bank account. I have no, I mean, the PayPal that I'm using for my book is my friend's PayPal because I can't get an ID. It's a long story.
Because you don't have a banking account. I know. You
So I
have
don't have a bank account, so I can't get a PayPal, and I can't put anything on eBay, and I
yeah,
can't do anything.
I'll tell you, for a long time, I refused to have bank accounts. I want nothing to do with banks, but they finally forced me to have to at least have one just for this show, for the PayPal and the things like that, the
Right.
donation. Because if not, they don't let you have it. You can't get at it. They force
Yeah.
you to use a bank.
I do have a GoFundMe account that I accept donations at, and the reason I use the GoFundMe is because it has the option of having a check sent, so I can then sign the check and give it to my friend who has a bank account. Not that I've been getting a whole lot of donations lately. I just got my first $50 donation in over 6 months.
Well,
And
congratulations.
I'm very, very
Yeah.
very thankful to Dave who donated that $50. But that $50 is not going to wind up in the end paying my rent.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you want to post the GoFundMe link in the chat room, you're welcome to do that too.
Okay, I will be doing that as we chat here.
I'm not greedy. I don't, there's some shows that they don't want you posting anything. They don't want mentioning other shows, or I don't care. As long as
Well,
it's
I
legit.
like that. I think that's the better way to go about things.
Well, me too. And
You know, we
my
all help each other as best we can.
my motto is, as long as it's legit, I don't care. It's the people who try to pull fast ones that
Right.
tick
That are
me
that are
off.
trying to be slick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. And so I guess if people want more information, the best thing they could do is go to your website and they can get your book. Is your book's linked up on your website, right? You said?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a it's technically a forum, and the reason I went that way is because it's free.
Hey, free is pretty good, although sometimes you get what you pay for. Um,
Well, yeah, and unfortunately there are ads that are on there. I have nothing to do uh uh with what goes up on my site, nor do I get a penny from it. It's all pro boards that make they make the money, and I provide the traffic.
oh,
But
okay.
it's free, and it lets me get that information out there. There's a thread in there. I forget what it's called. It's something on the order of support for my work. uh, I think it's in the everything else. There's only two sections on this board, which is the abundance paradigm and everything else. And yeah, support for the efforts to share tap is the name of the thread, and it's in the everything else area. And there's not a great deal of, not a huge number of threads on this forum at this point in time. I, for the most part, I mean, there are a few people that are contributing every so often, but mainly it's my writings. I've got the Abundance Paradigm foundational writings in one thread, and then I discuss things like my thoughts about teaching children,
Mm-hmm.
which you know that might be something I want to bring up. Um, right now, because we have to go plug our energy in somehow, we have to do something with our kids during the day. And so we send them off to the state run propaganda machine. And I really don't think that that's the best thing to do for our children. I really don't. Um, I think that with the web, what I could imagine is parents spending time with their kids, exploring on the web, and letting them learn about many things, and giving them suggestions of where to go, and showing them things they've found that they thought were interesting, and so on and so forth. And when the kid gets to the point where, gee, that looks really exciting, I want to do that, then making arrangements to you know have a master, or somebody that knows how to do it, teach them. Can my kid watch you while you're doing that? Do you suppose you could let him try it himself or herself? uh, and this way we would allow our children to find out what they love to do, and then apply their energy as they love to do. And if they ever get tired of it, they can go back to exploring on the web and maybe find something else. But most kids know what they really want to do. They really do.
Right.
Especially if you give them the information to choose from. They know what fascinates them. They know what their interests them. And let's face it, work done by somebody who loves to do what they're doing is far better. It's done far better than work that they're forced to do and they really hate.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You know, you'll wind up with work that's done just tremendously better if you have people who really want to do it doing it.
And I know this because I used to own a landscaping company, and I sometimes I would bring get teenagers who were looking for summer work to help, and they hated pulling weeds. And what they
Mm-hmm.
would do is try to put dirt over the weeds, so they didn't have to go and pull them, but they'd hide them.
Oh,
And so I'd come in with
yep,
my rake and I'd ruin their day.
yep.
Yeah. So instead,
Yeah,
give them jobs they
and we could
like.
get robots to pull weeds. In fact, I was thinking about as far as farming goes, I could see this little army of oh football size robots that go through and you know till the land and plant the seeds. And
We can eat most of those weeds that people throw in a garbage bag and throw
that's
out.
true. Dandelions come to mind.
Yeah, loaded with
They are
vitamins.
really quite wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, and
So,
people just throw this stuff out. And
yep.
so,
But you know, be that as it may, we could have such a situation where we just have and they sit there and they pull the bugs off the plants instead of spraying them with glyphosate. Oh, that stuff scares me.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I don't like the.
it's like we could create very organic, very healthy, nutrient rich food for all of us. That's another thing that I do want to bring up is the question of resources. Right now, we produce 125% of all the food that we could possibly eat on this planet. Approximately 30 to 40%, depending on where in the world you go, spoils before it can be sold and is thrown out. If we were distributing by need and not by profit, we could feed everybody just as it sits now. And then you add things like vertical farming and other such food growing technologies that they're coming up with. We could feed easily 100 times the number of people that are on the planet right now. Easily. As far as space goes, people think we're overpopulated. Good grief, if you took every single human being and put them in the state of Texas, which is a very small fraction of the landmass, they'd still have over 1,200 feet apiece. That's the size of a modest home for every single individual from newborn up to just barely hanging on. Uh, Another thing to think, I've got 3 examples on how much space we humans take up on this planet. If you gave every one of us a quarter acre in Australia, there'd still be a chunk of Australia left, and the whole rest of the planet. And Australia is only 4% of the landmass, not including Antarctica.
right.
So, again, we've got plenty of room on this
Well,
planet. If you put in electrogravitics, then we've got a third dimension as well.
Well, I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is when they talk about run out of resources. Well, that's because they're contaminating all the resources. You know,
Well, yes. Well, and I think they're doing that on purpose so that they can turn around and sell us processed
oh,
stuff.
I guarantee you, right? I'll tell you, I've been saying this for the last few years. There is a war on we the people, and it's several different areas, and one of them is the water. They took tons of drinking water from the Great Lakes, and they shipped it to China
Yep.
secretly. They tugged it off to China, and then now all of a sudden they start with these oil spills and these radiation leaks, and then the chemtrails. There's another one
Oh, yes. Oh,
getting into this
yes.
water, and it's contaminating it all. So the idea is where we'll have to come beg them for water because they're going to be
Yep.
the gods. They're going to control the weather, the water, the food. They're going to control it all. And I don't know to what point people finally say enough is enough and take the gloves off. I don't know, but it's ridiculous. But there's a war on the water, the drinking water, and the food.
You know, I don't know if you remember. I mean, this he was even on the Colbert Report. Um, Dean Kamen, who came up with the Segway, he was showing off this water purification device that he came up with. And it was amazing. I mean, they poured in some of the yuckiest stuff you can imagine, cranked it through the machine, and out came water that you could drink. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, wow, if we didn't have money, we could build a whole bunch of those, run them on free energy, because that was one of the big problems was how do you get energy to them? Uh, Run them on free energy. We can have clean water to drink anywhere. But of course, right now that's not happening because they're trying to take over the water. They don't want people
Well, they
to
are.
have
Yeah.
their free, clean water.
Yeah, and you look at different parts of the country where it's illegal. I know of a man I think somewhere in the middle of the country who wound up getting, I think, 30 or 60 days in jail for collecting rainwater in a
Yep,
barrel. And this
yep.
is going on in California too, and in other places where they claim to own the water. So I say this, all right, California, you're well populated, right? So the next time
Mm-hmm.
there's a flood and your homes get wrecked from a flood, go downtown and say, hey, your water destroyed my property, pay up.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you do. I mean, they want to claim ownership of it. Well, okay. Well,
Yeah, they get to take responsibility for what it does.
that's right.
Absolutely.
And if they don't want to, then they don't own anything. It's just,
Yeah,
it's
well, if we get rid of money, nobody owns water, air. I mean, you know that if they get a hold of water, air's next.
But you know what? If we all stood up, and here's the thing, I'm not saying there's no reason not to do it. We still need to do it, no matter what their move is going to be. But if we all stood up and said, that's it, take your money and stick it where the sun don't shine, we're doing things our way. You know, these sickos, they would bring in militaries. They would. Who knows how far they would go? I can only imagine. But that's not a way, to say that. Well, you should be fearful. Look, you're going to die one way or the other. We're all going out one way or another. So we might as well go
Yep,
out standing up for what's right. Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So
Absolutely. Well, I figure that if the 99% of us that, you know, are being controlled by the one, or actually really less than one, because a lot of that 1% are paid psychopaths,
yeah,
well paid psychopaths, uh, by the big psychopaths that are like the 0.01%. Um, but if 99% of us said, we're just going to do it this way, stopped contracting with this system, to say, I have no contract. We're going to do that. None of us has contract. We're going to do it this way. And just did it, the 1% wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
Well,
Really.
well, I've said this: if they really want to get people, large amounts of people, out of the way quickly and get them in their FEMA camps, so all they have to do is put the newest Xbox, the newest flat screen TV in these places, and leave the door open, and just like a rat with peanut butter on a trap, people will wander right in and say, "Yeah, lock the door. As long as I got all this, I'm good."
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's so damn true.
There are definitely a lot of people that would go that route, but
I wouldn't be one of them. I would be one. I'd be getting tortured. Who do you
yeah,
think you are to defy us? We're the gods. You know.
yep, yep.
But all right. Well. Hey, we're just about out of time here, and I did want to give you enough time to get out anything else that you'd like. So anything you want to plug or what have you, by all means, go ahead. And I thank you for
Just
spending time with us tonight.
oh, hey, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Sorry,
Every opportunity to share awareness here.
Well,
Uh,
absolutely, and get in touch with me again in the near future. We could do this again. And I apologize for screwing
wonderful.
the schedule up last week.
Oh no, that it happens. I know how things can get hectic and misunderstandings happen, and it's just yeah, not a problem.
Okay.
So,
All right. So, anything you want to throw out there before we say goodnight?
uh, just come by my forum, and it's tapurit.boards.net.
All right, and I'll keep it linked up on Late Night in the Midlands throughout tomorrow, and then we'll put it on the links page so people can find it
Wonderful,
there.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, and you have a great night. Have a great weekend. Have a great 2015. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, love, peace, and joy to you for the many years to come.
All right, and also to you. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too.
All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.
All right, everybody. So there you have it. Amaterasu Solar.
Were made, as opposed to I have to make them so I can get money, so that I can put food on the table. Because now, with all the basics and the materials and the tools available freely, we all can focus on that which we want. And rather than having a work ethic, which, I'm not talking about the worker's ethic of doing the best you can and all of that, showing up on time, doing the job well. I'm talking about the idea that if we plug our energy in somehow, that the accounting tokens we get back for having spent our time, energy, doing whatever it is we plugged our energy into, we can let's see. I sort of went off
Yeah.
track there, but
Well, basically, you're talking about robots doing all the jobs that people do now, and basically,
no,
no.
no.
Oh,
I'm
good.
talking about robots doing all the jobs nobody wants to do now. And actually, not even all of those, because when you take away money, we don't need cashiers. And how many cashiers do you think love to do cashiering? That's what they want to do with their lives.
Well, I can speak from my past experience. When I was a kid, I didn't like it at all.
Exactly.
So I got a
I mean, I
job.
would say that, yeah, you might find one person in several million that really loves to do nothing but cashiering, but virtually nobody wants to do that. We don't need cashiers. We don't need salespeople. We don't need accountants. We don't need um, collections. Oh, and people who do collections, I know they just adore that work, huh?
Yeah. Hey, let's go a little further too. We don't need the IRS either.
We don't need the IRS.
Yeah.
We don't need insurance. We don't need Wall Street. We don't need
The Federal
banking.
Reserve. We don't need none of that.
Exactly. In fact, if you take all those jobs out of the picture, at most, we only need 10% of the humans on this planet to keep things running. And there are a lot of people who love to solve problems. In fact, most of us will be motivated to solve a problem that is a problem to us. And one achieving how they were achieving gravity control. And one of the things that excited him the most was it seemed to be taking in more energy than it was using. So, they were very excited about that. And, me being at that time fairly young, he would tell me what the world would look like when I grew up because of the work he was doing. And he described flying cars, think Jetsons here, floating cities and houses, and the biggest thing of all was all the energy that we could use. Well, sometime in about late 1959, maybe early 60s, he came home and told me that we couldn't talk about it anymore at all, period,
Wow.
because they want it secret for now. And so after that, he never talked about his work at all. That was it. We just did not talk about his work. But from that experience, I was very well aware that we did have the ability to draw energy from the ether, and the ability to build things that could float and whatever. While I was growing up, I was never really good with the higher math. I could do the addition, subtraction, and all of the lesser math, but I struggled with the higher math. So I wound up going into banking, and then studying a great deal about economics. And I was always intrigued by the fact that economics always started just assuming that money was a requirement. It was sort of like rain, there it is, and this is how it works. And I kept looking into that, and eventually I wound up reading a book by Jeremy Rifkin. I was reading a lot of other books too that from which I developed an idea about societal function and how the chaos theory and all of that. But when I got to the book by Jeremy Rifkin called Entropy, and some of the older people made
of I guess money to exchange. There's going to always be some kind of
not
exchange.
not necessarily, and that's why I'm here.
Really?
Yes.
But well, let me ask you this quick then. I mean, like if you made coats and I needed a coat, and
Uh huh.
I made bikes and you needed a bike, we would exchange. That's still kind of like a
Yeah, but the difference would be uh, if we had all of the work that we needed done that nobody wanted to do, done by robots with free energy, then we could distribute the things like, the farming and so on and so forth freely. You could order it up on the web. I want this, and it would be delivered. Now, what we need to do is, of course, add the free energy, add robots to do the things we don't want to do. with the basic rule, if we've got enough people that want to do it, we don't need the robots. This neither forces anybody to do anything nor forces them to not do anything. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They can, they're not, we're not making people do anything or not do anything. They can do what they love to do. Now, if you're making, let's see, I forget which side, were you making the bike or the coats?
I'm making the bikes and you're making the coats. I mean,
Okay,
I'll take
if
either
I'm
one though.
making the coats because I love to make coats, and you show great appreciation for my coat, I can give it to you, but you could say, hey, I've got this bike. I love to make bikes. Would you like one? And I'd say, oh, yeah, I love your bikes. They're awesome. Okay. And then we can exchange, but we don't have to. It's really more of
Oh,
we
kind of
do what we want to do.
like
If I love making coats, it's not going to be to make money. It's because I love doing it. You see what I'm saying?
so then yeah, basically it's kind of like Christmas. It's here's a gift for you, and oh, by the way, I've
It's
got a gift for you too.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, if I made 500 coats and I only had 3 people locally that wanted a coat, I'd put it on the web and somebody would say, hey, I want one of those coats. And I'd say, robot, deliver that to that person,
Yeah.
and because I don't need 500 coats, but I loved making them. And that's why they were. Hang on, I'm having some problems. I can't hear you now.
Oh.
Uh,
Oh, okay.
oh, there you go. Now
There,
I can hear you.
there we are. I don't know what. Yeah, something was not good there. I just read off your bio, and I don't think anyone heard it.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Did you hear me when I
Well, I had turned it off so that I wouldn't have any, feedback.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. No, I think I did something on my end, and I don't know what the heck it was, and I apologize. Sorry, everybody. Um, anyways, I was reading off the bio to our guest, and I don't think any of you heard it. So, I guess a good place to start is first the pronouncing your name.
It's Amaterasu Solar.
Say that once more.
Amaterasu
Amaterasu
Solar.
Solar. Okay. I'll try. I'll really try to remember that. I'm really bad with names.
That's okay. That's okay. Like I said, most people struggle with it.
Yeah. Well, I'm a struggler with. It seems with names. I'm notorious for screwing them up on the show. But hey, I do welcome you, and I'd like maybe for us to start with background on yourself because again, I have a feeling people didn't hear the bio.
Okay. Well, my father was an aerospace engineer. He worked for Convair back in starting the late 40s through the 50s and 60s, and I think he retired in the 70s. Um, and he would come home very excited about his work, and he was thrilled to have a daughter who was interested in what he was doing at work. And he would tell me about what he was doing. He was working in electrogravitics with T. Townsend Brown, which, if anybody out there knows who T. Townsend Brown is, he is basically the one who discovered the Biefeld-Brown effect, which is what electrogravitics is founded on. There's some good information about how all of that developed in a book by Paul Laviolette called Secrets of Anti-Gravity Propulsion. And my dad was one of the people there at Convair that was working on that. And he'd come home and tell me about what they were. recognize that title. It's basically what kickstarted the whole uh, uh, recycling craze. It's like, oh my gosh, we're using too much energy. We've got to stop using energy because it creates entropy in society. And in that book, he made it very clear that what money does is account for our meaningful energy expended. So from there, I took that and, after examining what else money does in society, basically it accounts for our energy, which then allows us to exchange to survive. And it also allows us to get people to do things nobody wants to do, but we need done. The unfortunate thing about money is that it promotes the most psychopathic to the top because they are the ones who will do anything, anything to get there and stay there.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, that's sort of the history of what brought me to the work, which is what I kind of wanted to discuss tonight.
And I'm actually looking forward to discussing this tonight because we know that there's so many better technologies we could be using, such as free energy. I've had guests on who, I had one guest on who had a vehicle that was running on water, literally running on water.
Yep.
He disappeared, so I don't know where he is anymore today. But
Well, I'll tell you what happened to him. Either he got bought out, or he got threatened, or he got killed, or he got ruined. One of those. Because that's what happens to people when they come up with this, these technologies that create better than what they control way at the top in the psychopathic pantheon.
yeah.
So that's probably what happened to him.
And it probably is what happened to him. And so, okay, so we have greedy, soulless. I mean, they have no feelings of emotion or sympathy for humankind. I mean, that's the only way you get where they are,
Yep,
is to have no
exactly.
soul. And so, there's always going to be some form